Okay, welcome everyone to Unit Masters, Cohort 5. We are in week 2 of the 6 weeks program. Today we have speaker Ricardo Vázquez with us. Ricardo is a community manager and business development for the LATAM region for Avalanche ecosystem. He's been an economist working in the IT sector since 2009. And he has a master's in blockchain digital currency, University of Nicosia, and he works in FinTech, blockchain, and crypto since 2015. He's a co-founder of different projects. He's worked as a consultant for German development agency, GIZ. He worked at GiveEth, which is a really cool project, actually, and in many different other projects in the decentralized economy. So today we will learn from him, what does it actually take to build an ecosystem, and how does it actually affect everybody's lives in the present moment and also in the future? What are challenges, perspectives, and also maybe, Ricardo, if you could share, how do actually these protocols organize themselves? What does a team member in such a decentralized economy do? That would be super amazing. And the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to share some slides just to help in this journey. So do you see my screen, right?
Yes, we see it.
Yeah, great. So thank you for the presentation. And yes, my background, I'm an economist, and I used to work in the social development field. Actually, my thesis and my first work was around rotating savings associations for women in the rural areas of Mexico. And there is it's a very common tool in Mexico for savings and credits. And because in Latin America and in Mexico, the financial inclusion is an issue around here, but people organize themselves in order to have these kind of financial tools. So it was around 2006, more or less, that I worked in my thesis along with Kellogg Foundation. And it was an amazing journey because I assess the impact of these tools, of these rotating savings associations, not only in terms of the financial inclusion, but also in terms of empowerment for women, and also decision-making inside the households, and also in terms of health and education. And there was a very important impact of this in the access of these tools. We took one group that it's called the treatment group, and also another couple of regions where these with similar characteristics, but without access of these kind of associations. So the impact in terms of health, financial wealth, as well as health and empowerment was positive for these women. So then I joined the Ministry of Social Development, the federal government in Mexico. And it was an amazing journey. I studied economics because I was very interested in terms of inequality, poverty, and freedom, and also capabilities. So yeah, I was very happy in the government because I thought that was my mission, let's say. But then I was very young, and then I began to realize that it was very important to have this kind of experience inside the government with public policy, But then I said, okay, it's I'm fighting poverty, but the income in the government is not that well and well paid. So I said, okay, I'm really living in poverty myself. So I have to make some changes. And I switched to the IT sector because there was an opportunity, and it was a very interesting journey because I was in the National Tax Office doing some financial evaluation in the investment in the IT projects. So it is the most important office in Mexico in terms of investment in IT. So it's the organization that leads the IT sector, not only in the government but also in terms of the national projects. For example, in Mexico we have every person that begins to work has a electronic signature with cryptography. So what's my first involvement with cryptography? I didn't understand a thing. I was very focused in terms of the financial evaluation of this project. And then in 2015, I joined the financial minister in the the name of it in English is it's like the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, but in Mexico. So we take care of the savings of the people in the bank. And I was focused in the FinTech sector, that it was a very hot ecosystem in 2015. And I began to read a lot about blockchain, Bitcoin, and FinTech. So I went to the rabbit hole, and it was an amazing journey. So I decided to left the government and began my path in the blockchain space. It was at that time, it was a very small ecosystem, and it was not easy to talk about crypto in Mexico or in Latin America. There was a very small ecosystem, but for me, it was very interesting how crypto and blockchain could help with the financial inclusion topic. As you remember, that was my goal. Let's say at the beginning of my work living, I was like very focused on the financial inclusion and how to empower people to have financial tools. So I was very, very happy to join the ecosystem. It was very interesting because there was not too many projects with practical use cases. People was just, we were talking just with a PowerPoint presentation and imagine some use cases that could empower people, but there were just a few. And of course, Ethereum was very important, but there was some interesting universities, some organizations like the German Cooperation Agency that were looking at blockchain in order to bring some solutions. So I'm sharing you some statistics about financial inclusion in Latin America, for example, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. And the problem is that, for example, in Mexico, there are 50 banks. And but the problem is that 50% of the people doesn't have access to banks. because different topics of rural areas, or it's not profitable for banks to be present or to serve people that doesn't have like a formal job with and they work in the streets with informal job and informal income. So it's more or less the same picture in all Latin America. So that's when I decide to begin to work in crypto, and I have the opportunity to meet the Avalanche team in the Berlin Blockchain Week in 2019, and it was an interesting talk with them, because at that time they were looking of this kind of statistics. You see, the emerging markets are the economies that deal more commonly with crypto, because we have different problems beyond financial inclusion. We have high rates of inflation, and also political instability, like Venezuela, like Argentina, that unfortunately there are like 20 years that they have inflation and devaluation. So people began to take crypto like this store of value, especially Bitcoin. And when I talk with the people from Avalanche, and they were we were talking and exchanging some information, and they look at my background, and they invite me to take care of the Latin American ecosystem. So we began from zero in terms of, at that time, there was no mainnet, there wasn't even a testnet from Avalanche. So it was a very interesting journey. And as you mentioned, how to build an ecosystem, how to build a community, because people in Latin America, there is a very wide range of interest, and there is a people that is very deep in the crypto space, and that they have built many interesting projects. For example, Roostalk came from an Argentinian team, and Uruguayan, I think. Then we began to see that the main or the average person in Latin America didn't have a very a clue about crypto, the average people. And unfortunately, the education, the financial education is it's a challenge in Latin America. In Latin America, it's very common to see scams about pyramid schemes, because people just, they tell you, you are going to get, I don't know, 20% return in a year. And people will say, okay, and they trust to this kind of pyramid schemes. But there is a lot of information that you have to provide to the people in order to can identify and scam and a real project. So we began to this ecosystem in Avalanche, in Telegram. Telegram is the most important tool in the crypto space, in my opinion. Yeah, we were looking at how to provide information to this wide range of users, people that is very clever with the crypto and has a lot of experience, and people that is very curious. And I think that most of people in Latin America say, oh, you know, I'm interested in crypto, but I lost some money in an scam scheme, you know. And so we began to work with a lot of information, with a lot of education for the community. And at that time, the group was like, I don't know, 100 people. And it began, for example, people from Venezuela joined a lot because they were really interested of this new technology that provide you, for example, finality in your transactions in less than a second. Than normally, for example, with Ethereum, it takes, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. And with Bitcoin, you have to wait six confirmation on chain in order to have finality in your transactions. And yeah, I localized, or my idea with the team and the community was to localize all the information about how to provide real uses in Latin America. Because sometimes, for example, right now with decentralized finance, people in Latin America that understand really deep the decentralized finance, they can go to the, for example, to the global channel or to the English information, and it's really clear for them. But to bring information for people that is really curious, we developed a lot of tutorials for these people. So it's very interesting to see people that began with no clue. They didn't know about MetaMask, for example. They didn't know about all the characteristics of crypto, and now they can use MetaMask and to begin to save and to invest in a very controlled way, let's say, with the small amounts, and it's really interesting. So and I want to share this, for example, this tweet from a guy from Avalanche that say, if you are looking for a job in crypto, he brings three ideas. For example, skip LinkedIn, hop and on the DAOs on Discord, like for example Pangolin, that is and the decentralized exchange in Avalanche, and ask how you can contribute on these communities. For me, it was more or less the same idea. I was on the global channel of Avalanche, and I was like sharing information, bringing these ideas that, you know, in Latin America, we have different problems, we have different challenges than in Europe or in the States. And for example, in Mexico, remittances from the States are really important. So people begin to think or to imagine, okay, I can send some remittances from the States to Mexico. And that was the first, that were the first ideas about how to use crypto and to solve some issues or real problems in Latin America with remittances. And yeah, so I skipped LinkedIn in terms of, I went directly to the Telegram community and begin to share information about our day-to-day reality in Latin America. And if you are a developer, of course, you can go to Discord, but the Telegram chats that are around are really important because people bring some doubts, and the community also bring the information and the answer to that. And it's not the same perspective from a person from Venezuela than from Argentina, than from Mexico. There are different realities, but you have a lot of information that brings you a lot of value. And yeah, then you begin to contribute. You know, there was, for example, many articles that were in English, and people just began to ask, I'm going to translate it and to bring information and to bring value to the Avalanche community in Spanish or in Latin America. So, and there are many profiles that are needed, not only developers, people from marketing, economists, people from the business background are really, really important, because sometimes to talk to with the IT background to the average user is quite difficult in terms of they want to know how to send remittances from one country to another. They don't want to understand the cryptography. They don't want to understand the protocol. They just want to know how to use it, how to use your mobile app or your MetaMask in order to send some value to some friends or family. And for example, in 2019, there was an earthquake in Mexico, and people organized in different communities, not only in Avalanche, and they began to say, hey, if you want to help, we are going to put this wallet, and you can send money from outside, and we are going to bring it to the Red Cross. And it's going to be very, very transparent. How are we going to give this money to the Red Cross? So we began to see these kind of use cases that are very clear in terms of how people organize in a decentralized way, because we didn't took the lead in that initiatives. People just organize and they say, here's the wallet, begin to tweet about it, put a QR code, and begin to share this information. And in terms of the how to build the ecosystem, for example, we develop some alliances. For example, with the Inter-American Development Bank, we became partners of this initiative that bring some solutions for governments mainly. It's in the first steps, this association, blockchain, but was one of the first alliances that we developed in the Latin American space. So I also want to share this idea of to have a very clear communication with government, because, for example, in Mexico, we have the FinTech law that it's very, it's not that clear for the digital assets, you know, for wallets and for crowdfunding, that are the three topics in the FinTech law. It's really clear for crowdfunding and digital wallets. But for digital assets or crypto, it's not very clear, and there are many challenges around. So we are in communication with the regulators in order to begin to build a clearer framework to improve financial inclusion. So, for example, this was this event with the UK Embassy and other players of the ecosystem in Mexico, with this idea, with the Sandbox Challenge, in order to provide some ideas that bring these barriers for solutions and related to financial inclusions to lower these barriers. And but not everything is that serious, because in this year we saw that the NFT space were there were some ideas around the ecosystem. And as you know, for example, in the Philippines, there is a huge economy around NFTs, especially with Axis, with the Axis project. There is a very important relief for the people that with the lockdowns and the COVID, unfortunately has lost their jobs. And now this crypto economy is really booming in some countries, as at the beginning was Philippines, but also now in Venezuela, in Mexico, we can see the same. So we decide at the beginning of the year to make a contest related to crypto art in order to bring to digital artists this new idea about NFTs, because they were really open to these ideas about create digital art, but how to sell their creations was not very easy. So we began to provide these tools and these contests, so people and artists began to know about NFTs, and we provided a lot of information and a lot of tutorials around. And for example, we were sponsors of one fighter about martial mixed arts, and we were looking or providing these tools that people will recognize that, okay, this now I can collect these digital stamps from these people from sports, and it's easier to know that you can collect some items that to talk about the protocols and cryptography. It was an approach that we decided to do, and that helped us to work with other projects. And I'm going to share, for example, we also provide or we work with the Congress of the Mexican state of Quintana Roo, where Cancun is, in order to bring transparency of the legislation. So now people can see all the initiatives that are in the Congress, and to see all the modifications and the discussions that the congressmen and congresswomen are having on their debates, and see all the changes, because before this project, there was everything was on paper, but because of COVID, we helped to digitalize everything, and that make the legislative process more transparent. So it was a very important tool that we provide to this Congress. We hope that soon we can see this in other states, and of course in the National Congress. But it was not the only collaboration with the government. We also worked with the government of the state of Quintana Roo to bring transparency to COVID tests, because unfortunately there was a black market of this kind of test in order to go abroad. From Cancun, if you wanted to return to Europe, to the States, or South America, or whatever, you need to provide a test that you don't have any trouble with COVID, but there was a black market. So we bring this solution, and we are working on it with the government and with Genobank, that is a startup from Silicon Valley, and it's a very interesting idea. Now I know that in Colombia they are also doing the same approach with another blockchain. I think with perhaps with Algorand, but I mean it's important to bring these solutions to provide these new tools that help people to have to be healthier. And the last project that I want to share with you, we associate with the most popular soccer team in Mexico that is called Chivas, and we developed a project for an NFT auction because of their 115th anniversary of the club. And you can see how this localized strategy with Avalanche provide us this communication and these projects with the government, and also with some artists, as well with soccer clubs. That it's amazing to see how people will it's a collecting these non-fungible tokens and of their passion, that it's, for example, football. And I just wanted to share some ideas that we are having right now on Avalanche. There is a developer contest that it will run during August, and there is very interesting prizes. And I just wanted to share my contact in terms of Twitter, Telegram, my email, if you want to know more about us. And I'm happy to answer your doubts and your if you want to know more about the crypto space in Latin America or about Avalanche. I think I can, if you can tell me the questions, Jeep, or I can read it wherever it's of more course, comfortable for you.
I'm here to support. So thank you very much first for this very insightful presentation on the emergence of the blockchain ecosystem in Latin America. Maybe for some of us who don't know so much about the different protocols, can you share a little bit about Avalanche and its origin? What is different compared to, let's say, Ethereum or Polkadot, for example?
Sure. So the difference between Avalanche, the consensus, and Ethereum, it's very important in terms of right now there is the Nakamoto consensus protocol that works with a leader that solves the nonce in the chain, and all the validators follow that leader that brings the solution to the cryptographic problem. And with Avalanche, there is no leader on the protocol. All the nodes participate in the validation of all the transactions. Right now, there are more than 1,000 validators in Avalanche, and as I mentioned, there is no leader. So if you remember, with Ethereum, with Bitcoin, and all the blockchains that use the Nakamoto consensus, they validate the transaction and they receive a reward, no? In Ether or in Bitcoin, but all the others validators follow that transaction in the chain, and it's the long chain that makes take the leads. And in the Avalanche consensus, all the nodes participate in the decision with some subsamples. So if I send a transaction, then one node asks all the surrounding nodes if that transaction is valid or it's not valid, and then makes many rounds. So in less than a second, all the nodes, let's say in this case 1,000 right now, but it's increasing, they choose if this transaction is valid or not. And the reward, it will reach every node in the same proportion of their stake. Avalanche use proof of stake in difference of Ethereum and Bitcoin. So and also, for example, right now that today Ethereum bring the London operate, Avalanche has the same mechanism that all the fees get burned in the protocol. So it was since day one that we had the same mechanism. And as a background, as you mentioned, this protocol was developed by an anonymous team, and it was took for some computer scientists from Cornell University, and they developed the application of the Avalanche protocol. I think that that's the main difference in terms of the with the other important protocols. First, that there is no leader there is no long chain, and other difference is that, for example, all other blockchains have one set of validators and only one virtual machine. With Avalanche, there is you can also develop as many virtual machines as you want. You can create a subnet, that is a subsample of validators, and you can deploy a virtual machine with its own blockchain and their own digital assets on it. So that's another interesting difference, that you can have as many virtual machines, as many blockchains, or many digital assets, and you can have blockchains with permissioned blockchains or permissionless blockchain. You don't have to have all the nodes are validating everything. You can have some samples. So that's another interesting difference.
Makes the ecosystem grow a bit easier, right? Can you share maybe, as if I were a bird looking at the Avalanche ecosystem, right? What does Avalabs do? What is like the role of Avalabs? And then what are different other ecosystem players in your ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So for example, the Avalabs team is just facilitating or bringing some tools in the development of the Avalanche ecosystem, but there are many players. Let me show you one of them, one image, because there are many players, and that's an interesting point, because there are at least 200 projects right now.
Yeah.
So let me see. Where is it? I'm trying to look because this one is not that well updated, but you can. Yeah, I'm going to share this one.
Amazing. The reason I asked this is as a reflection exercise for Unit Masters Week 2 assignments. We asked participants to look at different ecosystems and understand what are the different players, how do they contribute to the ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, you can visit. You're looking my.
Yes, we are seeing it. Wonderful.
Okay, so you can see this website that is avaxprojects.com.
Yes.
And you can see all not all, but most of them. And you can see, for example, if you want to see something related to NFTs, and you can see that these are the projects. We are trying to update this as soon as possible, but there are many projects. For example, here's Chivas that I mentioned. I'm going to click so you can see the. Okay. Okay, and there are many projects around. Snowflake is a very interesting project. It's related to is a market for I have to use my MetaMask, but yeah, it's related to NFTs. You can mint your own NFTs and sell or buy NFTs around. And yeah, there is, for example, this one around TOPS. TOPS is an important project in or enterprise in the States, and there are going to be many applications around digital collectibles.
Thanks very much for sharing. I want to read out some questions from the audience. So
Sure.
one is a question about internet and governments. Daniel is asking, are there not any problems created for the use of blockchain or cryptocurrencies in regions where the government maybe decides to just shut off the internet? What would happen in these cases?
Yeah, for example, I think that the government are looking at they differentiate the digital assets or the cryptocurrencies and the technology. Of course, and the decentralization brings a lot of value to these solutions. For example, with the Quintana Roo government, there is no problem. We are not using as cryptocurrencies on this project. We are just certifying the information and the documentation around it, the documents. But yeah, I think that is a very important challenge when governments decide to shut down the internet. Unfortunately, at least in Latin America, there is the censorship. It's an issue, yeah, but the main problems right now are related with problems with energy. You know that there are just shutdowns, and quite common in Venezuela. I think there were some shutdowns in Mexico some months ago, but there is no, let's say, a face-to-face problem with censorship and the internet. Of course, there are other countries in the Middle East or other regions that, yeah, if people just shut down internet, it will be a very important challenge. I remember Lebanon, for example, had that issue, and it's a challenge for the crypto space, how to run around this issue. But at least from Latin America, the problem is there is some kind of censorship from the governments, but I think that dApps are not the main focus for them.
Yeah. How about your perspective on El Salvador and accepting Bitcoin as the legal tender? What happened in the market, and what do you think, what kind of effects will it have in the global markets?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because it was a very nice surprise. El Salvador had many characteristics that helped to have this decision. One is that they were a dollarized economy. The dollar was their official currency, and it's very integrated to the states, the United States economy, because of the remittances. The remittances are very, very important in El Salvador. So I know that, for example, there is a regional development bank, the Central American Regional Bank, that is really open to help the government. So I think that there is a huge challenge around how people will adopt Bitcoin, use their wallets, and how to to explain, for example, the seed phrase, and if you lose your seed phrase, your money is gone. So I know that they are working really hard in order to provide education to the people, because there are people that are against Bitcoin because they don't understand it, and because there is a very important polarization in terms of politics in El Salvador. So they don't really care about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. They are just against anything that the government says or do. So yeah, I think that they will begin at the end of September, because they have this law, and they will bring in 90 days, I think, in order to provide this information and to bring all the details about how to use crypto in the day-to-day economy. They are using layer 2 wallet. Yeah. So yeah, there is a very important challenge inside the Salvadorian economy. But I think for other economies, not only in Latin America, globally, it's going to be a very important pilot test, let's say, because many countries will use it as a, or they will really see all the details about the errors, as well as the things that are well done. They are going to take note, and hopefully we can see other countries with huge inflation, like Venezuela, like Lebanon or Turkey, using not only Bitcoin, but perhaps other digital assets.
Yes. We have a question from Femelo from Soweto, and she says, thank you for a wonderful presentation. She's from South Africa, and I saw that you indicated 32% of the population indicate they're familiar with blockchain cryptocurrency in Nigeria. She stays in Soweto, and the biggest township in Africa. And most people are very clueless about blockchain and cryptocurrency. She would love to know how you manage to educate and influence people in Mexico to have interest in blockchain and cryptocurrency. She's trying to build communities over there too. And there's also a question from another participant, Vikas, who also asked about the relationship between technological savviness and literacy of the population, like if there's any challenge to that too.
Yeah, I think that I must be honest, and our community is let's say small. In Mexico we are 120,000 million of people, and of course people knowing about crypto is really narrow. For example, there are some statistics that perhaps there are 2 million of accounts in centralized exchanges, but our perspective was to know the average user, and the average user had some idea about Bitcoin, about crypto. So we began to have many information, many tutorials in Spanish. So I think that bring information in your own language and localize to regional troubles, in order to provide real solutions that if you bring some examples from the States or from Europe, it looks really far from our day-to-day. And we have, for example, weekly quizzes for the community, and if they answer correctly, they can earn some points that they collect, and they can change for AVAX, the digital asset of Avalanche. So I think that for the Latin American culture, to make it easy and to make it a little bit fun or ludic in terms of to learn and also bring some contests around graphic design, around memes. It's really important because people to abstract all the complexity of blockchain with a meme. It's a really interesting challenge, and people will understand a lot with this kind of infographies that are really funny. So I think that to bring conversation and to try to answer all the questions as far as possible, and to bring like local information. It's very important to bring this information and to bring ideas, because people is really looking for how can I use blockchain in order to solve issues in my town or in my country. So this collective intelligence is really important, and the groups in Telegram help a lot.
Okay, we have 2 more questions and then we're going to wrap up the session. So the first one is, what is actually the barrier to entry? What is actually preventing people from just copycatting Avalanche or any other coin or token?
Yeah, I think that it's not only for Avalanche,
yeah.
and the main asset with these projects that are open source is the community. The community is the main asset, because I'm not a developer, but I know that you can just copy the code and deploy another Avalanche, let's say. But if you don't have community, you are going to be a ghost chain, you know. And here is that, for example, we have more than 12 communities in terms of languages: Chinese, Japanese, Turkish, French, in the India, Latin America, Portuguese, Spanish. So to have that ecosystem and to have that community is the real asset of these projects that are decentralized. So yeah, for us, it's not a big headache to think about, oh, someone is going to copycat our protocol, because the main asset is the community. And as I mentioned, these 220, 250 perhaps projects that are around, and they begin to interconnect each other and to bring value and synergies that are not easy. That if some very smart developers deploy a new Avalanche, they don't have these assets and these synergies that begin to work between all the projects around.
Mm. And what do you think about digital currencies published by the government, like CBDCs, as Hina?
I think that in these couple of years, let's say 2020, 2021, governments are realizing that blockchain is important because it brings not only digital scarcity, but programmable money. And this is a huge jump in the technology, something very new, and that brings this intermediation of value. So I think that government are free to test the technology. I'm not sure that CBDCs are the right approach, but I think that as long as government keep this freedom of choice to the people, that if I want to buy Bitcoin or to buy Ether, to buy AVAX, and to use CBDCs, from my opinion, that's okay. But if you want to bring these CBDCs banning cryptocurrencies, I think that it doesn't make sense, because the spirit of blockchain and cryptocurrencies is this openness and this freedom of choice. But yeah, it's something difficult. But yeah, I think that in 1 year or a couple of years, we are going to see that the difference between CBDCs and cryptos that we know are going to vanish, and its CBDCs are just like intranets 15 years ago, and are an experiment that is needed, but I'm not sure that it's going to have enough results, adoption in the long term. And of course, China, it's a big economy, and it's leading that approach. But we have to see, we have to wait a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the CBDCs, but I think that the governments are free to experiment with the technology.
Wonderful. And as a closing question, at Unit Masters, we typically ask Ricardo, what is your happiest moment along, or one of your happy moments that you would love to share with the community along your crypto journey?
I think that when the government of Quintana Roo decided to use blockchain, I was very happy, because it's not easy to have a government understand blockchain and to say, okay, we are going to use the technology to bring a solution, a transparent solution, so people with internet can see all the decision of the Congress. I was really happy because it was the first project on Avalanche and a government. And to be in Latin America was really interesting for me, because people from Latin America know that to work with government is not an easy task. And after that announcement, a couple of weekly calls were around with other Congress in Mexico as well as in South America. So we hope that we can see the same, not only in Latin America, but around the world, in terms, and then bring transparency and bring certainty about the decisions that the Congress made. And yeah, I think that was one of the most happy moments in my experience with crypto, my involvement.
Well, congratulations on these accomplishments, and I wish you many more happy moments to come in the near future. Thank you everyone for attending Unit Master session today. We will just close the room and close the session. We won't do the networking today. Next week, we will have Betty Chan from Karura Network, that is like on the Polkadot ecosystem, Kusama ecosystem, joining us, and hope you will come again, and we will launch the week 3 content online in a few days. Thank you very much, Ricardo, and see you, everyone. See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much for all of you, and thank you, Yip, to having me here.
Pleasure. Talk soon.
Talk
Bye.
soon.